guys, it's Miss Dobes. We are working on our weekly project today, and we'll be using negative and positive space as well as several of the art elements in our project today. So, when we think about negative and positive space in a picture would be where there is nothing, and positive space in the picture is where there is something. So if we look at this basic house picture, our house would be the positive space. All of this area around the outside of the house would be the negative space. So if you're in math class, if you have negative something, that means you don't have it. So you have like minus that. If you have positive something, that means you do have that, right? So in our project, we are going to be using negative and positive space to get really creative and create an interesting artwork. So what you are going to need for this will be random objects that you have lying around the house. It's easiest to pick things that you can trace around. So all of these you see, we can trace around those pretty easily. If you were to use something like a fine-tooth comb, that might be really hard to trace around because you'd have trouble getting in between all of those tiny little teeth. So what you'll need to do will be to gather your objects, all right? You'll also need a pencil and an eraser just in case. You'll need something to trace over your pencil lines with. Now, of course, you guys know I love those markers, but you can use colored pencils, you could use crayons, whatever you have around to color with. So, what we want to do when we are tracing our objects is we are going to, kind of lay them out on your paper in a way that is interesting, but we're also going to make sure that we overlap some of these. So when I'm tracing around this paintbrush, it is also easiest to hold your pencil straight up and down as you trace. And don't forget, guys, that when I'm going over instructions and showing you how to do things, it is totally fine to pause the video, get your stuff back together. If I'm working really fast, you can pause the video. So let's see, I've got my paintbrush outline. It's alright, nothing exciting yet. I'm going to trace my spoon. Let's see, what's the best way to trace this fella? So, another thing I've noticed is you got to hold it down pretty hard. And I'm going to trace, with my right hand, which is my normal drawing hand. So make sure you hold down your object with your other hand so it doesn't wiggle around. Alright, so we got a spoon on a paintbrush. Getting a bit more interesting. So I'll be very interested to see in what kind of interesting objects you guys find to trace for your project. So they don't all have to be art supplies, but I'm in the art room, so that was what I have available. So as I'm working, I'm trying to kind of space my things out. Here's my hole punch. That one's kind of weird to trace. Make sure you have stuff that's like going off the page. Lots of things that overlap. So if I look on here, this top part here is kind of weird. But it makes some interesting stuff. Let's see here. So now I've traced all my objects that I have, so I'm going to start repeating them. And I'm making my line kind of zigzaggy at the end of my brush. Making sure my pencil is like straight up and down. So we're wanting to break up the space. You can have some areas where there isn't anything. Ooh, this guy's wiggly. There we go. So this area here, I've got a lot of stuff going on. So that looks pretty interesting. I feel like to make my picture look balanced, I need something else over on this side. So, let's see here. Maybe I'll put another spoon. So this spoon is kind of hard to trace because it's plastic and wiggly. You might have better luck with a metal spoon. There we go. Now I feel like I need maybe one more thing over here. And try to, turn your objects so that they're kind of facing different angles. And I feel like the back part of the scissors seems like the most interesting part of the scissors, so I'm going to put that one in here. There we go. All right. So I feel like I've used my space really well on here. So I've got all my positive spaces, all right? Those are the inner areas that I traced around, and then I've got my negative spaces, and those are the areas on the outside. So now you need to pick something to trace these with. And tracing is also going to make them look a little bit smoother. So I'm going to use a marker. You don't have to use a black marker. You can pick any color you want. In fact, I think I'm going to use this kind of midnight blue. It's like a purpley blue to start tracing over these. Now in some artworks, whenever we overlap, we make sure that we erase the lines that would cut through another object. But on this particular project, we are doing the opposite of that. So we want these little lines to come through. We're also taking things that are real and making them a little bit more abstract, because obviously you cannot see through a spoon or a paintbrush or a pair of scissors. So while I'm working, you can kind of see that as I make my lines, this is a way to get it a little bit more smooth. So when I trace it, some of my lines get off of it a little bit. Oops, forgot one right there. And then some of them got a little bit clunky. I forgot that one right there. So this is a chance that you can kind of smooth those lines, because sometimes when we are tracing these objects, they're going to move a little bit. This kind of just tidies it up just a little. All right. So I have all of my interesting objects traced, and they stand out a lot better now. So if we look at my example, this would be a finished object, or the finished artwork. So like I said before, we are using some of the elements of the principles of design and the elements of art in our picture. So we're going to use patterns in some and then solid areas. All right. So we've got patterns, we've got different kinds of lines. We're also showing space. So space is the area that an object would take up, like the mass of the object. And we're showing that kind of like how you can see the glue bottles in there. Everything's kind of taking up its own space. And we've also got shapes. So obviously these are lots of shapes. So this one fairly simple art project uses a ton of those. All right. So when we start adding color and filling these in, we're going to imagine that each one of these little areas, they're made by this line. We are going to use different forms of patterns and colors to fill those in. So you can see where the line on the glue bottle separates the end of the scissors from the handle of the scissors. So you need to make sure that each area is filled in differently. And it looks the best when you don't let any of them touch. So think about like a checkerboard, and the checkerboards, you know, they only touch on the very corners, but if the colors were right next to each other, it wouldn't be a checkerboard, it would be like stripes. So make sure each area is filled in with, you know, a different pattern. And feel free to leave some of the areas white. I left the glue bottles for the last and then just thought that they looked really good like that. After all, they are glue bottles, so Elmer's glue is normally white. So now we're going to fill those in. Let's see here. I'm going to pick a few different colors. So it's springy, so we'll use a nice springy green. And remember, you don't have to use markers on this. You can use crayons or colored pencils. If you don't have anything to add color with, you can just use a regular pencil and then just change how hard you push down. So maybe some spots are shaded in super duper lightly with your pencil, and then other areas are a little bit darker. Then you use different patterns in other places. So I'm gonna just kind of work my way around my paper and just kind of space out this green. A nice solid area. And somebody over here. So I would pick a couple different colors to do my solid areas, and then some other colors to do my patterns. So let's see, let's work on some patterns. So here's a nice blue. So maybe I do wavy line patterns. And I'll pick a few areas that don't touch and do my wavy line patterns. You could do hearts, stars, anything that you can turn into a pattern. Polka dots. And just fill in areas with those. I'm going to kind of change which direction my little wavy lines are going also to make it a little bit more interesting. So as you work, like I said, try not to let areas of the same color touch or areas of the same patterns touch. Just keep adding in. So on this one, we are playing with negative and positive space, but we're using that and we're like changing it to make our picture look more interesting. So have fun with this. I'm excited to see what you guys make with it. So I'll finish this one up and show you guys whenever you come back to class. And I can't wait to see it and see your artwork. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.